Davinson, Sanchez, and the boos that were ringing out at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Boos even before he entered the pitch, as he was coming on the pitch. Boos as he was taking touches on the pitch as well. And then the biggest boos of the night when he did go off the pitch. After the game, him and Pedro Porro had to delete their social media accounts because of abuse from the fans. Pedro Porro has since come back onto social media today. But we'll start with you on this, Barry. Were the fans right to treat Sanchez in that manner?
No. For me, it's absolutely disgusting, absolutely disgraceful. Look, this started with Ndombele, obviously, with what happened at Morecambe, right? And you can see that there was a rightful way to boo him because of the way that he behaved and the time he was taking to get off the pitch and what had happened, right? That's absolutely fine. It then carried on with Emerson. There was that time where he got booed. Then he got cheered when he got substituted. And then Emerson came out saying, "Oh, the fans cheer me. They love me." And it's like, no, the fans weren't cheering because you came off. They were cheering because you came off. And also there were also some cheers when Sanchez came off as well, because when we were doing the watch along, I could hear the cheers. And it's just an absolute disgrace, right? It's not there. Look, for all Sanchez's faults, right? You go back to last season when he came in that North London derby and we were all outside and the mood suddenly changed when Romero wasn't fit and Sanchez was in. We were all worried. And obviously there was that stat or whatever beforehand where how many clean sheets and how many games that we'd won. So, look, it's a bigger thing than just Davinson Sanchez, this defence. Obviously, Davis hasn't been. I mean, I can't believe we're all sitting there. Davis isn't there, so look out. Look, it's even more at kind of a kilter. But to boo him and to boo him when he's touching the ball, and to also after the game for both Porro and Sanchez to have to delete their social media because the abuse they get, it just goes to show what we've all turned into. We can sit there and say, actually, you can see it from Sanchez. Look, he's not going anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he's offered a new contract. We're not going to sell one of the most, expensive signings that we've made at the club, or let him go for free. So look, that's not his fault. He didn't pay the money. That was paid by us. So we need to then look at where that blame lies, and we know where the blame lies, and everything else. So why don't we, instead of going after the player or the players, why don't we go after the board or the football club or the director of football or the scouting network or whoever it is? They're the ones that need to take the blame, not sit there, because look, it kind of took everything off the game, right? Because Hugo came out and went, "Oh yeah, that's the most disgraceful thing I've said," and then actually people are then going to probably, and even I said it, I think, well, Hugo's come out and defended Sanchez, which he's going to do because he's the captain, but actually, where's the fight? People are then going to flip it on the other way and go, well, where's the fight from Hugo on the pitch? Why is he not getting these players? Why is he not cheering them up? But yeah, for me, that's an absolute disgrace of what happened with Sanchez, and we shouldn't be doing that. It just makes us look even more silly than we already are on the football pitch.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ash, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I just started to cringe when I heard it, because at the end of the day, we're all human. I know obviously football is, people are put under a microscope and, they get paid millions of pounds and everyone looks at, the lifestyle, etc., etc. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter how much money you get paid. You can still be depressed. Do you know what I mean? You can still come home and still have to face the same everyday things like everyone else faces. Do you know what I mean? You can't get around it. And so on the pitch, if the player is not giving enough effort or they're not fighting for the badge, then it's a different argument. It's a different conversation. But as soon as they put that white shirt on, you need to be behind them, because that player is essential to pushing your team up front to getting the win, which we all want. And so for me, I was just putting myself in his boots, and I'd think, oh, imagine I came on and everyone's just booing me. The energy itself, I'm not going to want to perform as, even like in a subconscious level, whether it be a conscious or subconscious level, it might throw you off from doing something that you might want to do naturally. He might want to pass it a bit stronger. He might want to knock it first time. He might want to carry it out. But he's thinking, oh, if I make a mistake, these fans are going to be on me. So you're thinking twice as much. So fans booing, I mean, I understand like why, because of the past mistakes he's made. I'm not excusing it, but I understand why the fans were not happy. And I think some of the fans were more booing Stellini's decision to bring him on, maybe. I could maybe argue that, and that's the reason why some of the boos rang out. That's me clutching at straws, because I really know it was for Sanchez. But yeah, for what it's worth, like I don't think I think it added to the problems rather than help boost the player up. You need to get behind the players, despite like what you may think of them, whether you think they're good enough. You need to get behind the team and the players, and yeah, literally, like I honestly think some of the mistakes were because of the boos and the jeers, and then obviously he came off. You saw his face; he's like, he didn't know what to say. He was so frustrated, and then the staff felt so sorry for him. I see them patting him on the back, and he sat down on the bench and he was just huffing and puffing. It was a bit different to, you know, when Mourinho subbed off Eric Dyer, and like that was more of a tactical thing, and that was like, you know, a sacrificial lamb kind of thing. You know, it was a bit different. Fans weren't booing, weren't jeering, but this guy literally looked defeated, and it'll be interesting to see what happens now at Newcastle, whether the manager gives him another chance, because, you know, it's going to be away from home. So because he's away from home, he's not going to have that same pressure. So I wonder if they're going to stick him in and keep to a back three because of that, and just you know, maybe stick Sanchez on the right and have Romero on the left and Dyer in the centre. I think that's a strong possibility. As much possession as we had against Bournemouth, it's against a lower opposition, and you're at home. I think away from home, I think he expects Newcastle to have the lion's share of the possession, and I think he will try to go back to his counter-attacking style, because that is the main style. Do you know what I mean? I mean, a lot of the fans will be disappointed and will probably be like upset for saying it, but I think that's the situation. But coming back to Sanchez, I think he needs to have another game, unfortunately, for his own development. If we are to sell him anyway, we need to have a good performance, because I think he needs to be sold at this point. I don't think he should stay on any longer. I just think whether it's a confidence issue or an actual ability, like as a footballer, either way, he's been here long enough. He's done his time. And I think it's time for him to go, in my opinion. Like, I don't want to see any player go anymore through any of that, me personally. That's it.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it was absolutely disgusting from the fan base, to be honest. And when you're looking at it, right, if you want to say that they were booing Stellini's substitution, and I don't really have too much of a problem with that. I mean, I probably wouldn't boo myself personally, but I can understand if fans want to boo the substitution at the time and the decision to make that substitution. I can kind of understand it. But when they take it as far to boo him from every touch on the pitch, and to boo and cheer when he goes off the pitch as well, I just think it's borderline bullying at that point, to be honest. And when you're trying to show support, and you want to show support for your team, and you want to try get out the bad times, I mean, this is just a way to delve even deeper to the bad times. And if you think anything good is going to come out of booing a player coming on and booing him on every touch when you're trying to get into that top four and trying to get a win, you're going to be rudely mistaken, to be honest. And for fans that say, you know, but we pay our money, we're entitled to boo. Yeah, fine, you're entitled to do what you want, but it doesn't make it right. It's completely wrong to do something like that, especially one of your own. Never mind if they're you know, of the required quality. If them being of the required quality is not their own doing, that's our fault for not doing our due diligence and signing the right people in the right spaces. And unfortunately, Sanchez is foul of that. You know, he's not good enough to be at this football club. I think everyone can, you know, agree on that one. But we put him in that situation. We're the ones putting him and basically making him a sacrifice every time we put him on the pitch. And he was the one that was made a scapegoat on the weekend, when, you know, he's not the only one that deserved to be booed on that game for the performances. You know, there were so many other players that deserved to get booed. So why is he the only one being singled out? It's just, like I said before, borderline bullying. And when you take into account that he had to delete his social media, so clearly he was getting a lot of abuse abuse surrounding social media, which is nowhere near good enough from this fan base. But Pedro Porro as well. Pedro Porro's been here for 3 months, and us as a fan base already bullying him off social media, albeit it has come back. But this fan base, it's getting very, very toxic now, and they need to, I think we all as a collective need to take a long, hard look at ourselves that make sure stuff like this does not happen again, because it's nowhere near good enough from us.
Yeah, I think the fans really let themselves down, to be honest, on Saturday. And I was there. I can tell you, I don't think there were fans booing. I didn't hear anyway fans booing Stellini's substitution. Now I think they were booing Sanchez himself. And I think, case in point, when the first goal went in, Sanchez had his part to play in it. But I think most people agree the main fault for that goal probably falls with Pedro Porro in how that goal went in. And yet after the goal, it wasn't Porro being booed, it was Sanchez. Sanchez was the one with every touch was getting booed. And that was the case in point to him being scapegoated. And to be fair, after that first goal was conceded, the fans started to boo his touch, and then in a response to that, some fans did try and cheer his touches as well, try and give him support. So it was kind of give and take at that point. There were a lot of fans disagreeing with it, but once he made that mistake for the second goal, there was no support for him. He was just booing every single touch, really loud, audible boos as well, and it was a really, really toxic atmosphere, and it was pretty disgraceful. Reaction to one of our players making a mistake. That's not what they need. I'm sure he knows he made a mistake. I'm sure he knows he screwed up. It doesn't need reminding from the fans with every single touch that, hey, you've made a mistake. You made a mistake. We don't think you're good enough. We think you're terrible. We want you off the pitch. He doesn't. That's not what a player needs in that situation. And anyone thinks that is gonna anything positive is gonna come out of that are deluded or mistaken, and they're not going about things in the right approach. But part of me also thinks that the fans booing, as much as I completely disagree with it and I completely think it's completely wrong, part of me also thinks it was more what Sanchez represented on the pitch and what he represents within this team rather than himself being the eye of our frustrations. Yes, he was completely singled out and scapegoated, and it was disgraceful, but I also felt like he was one being booed because he was the player that represents the club's stagnation and the lack of quality the most on the pitch as well. And that is what part of the reason why he was, I guess, singled out by a lot of the fans with every single touch. And I completely disagree with it, and I thought it was completely disgraceful. But I also think that was a big part of it because he's been around here for a long time. He hasn't been good enough for a number of years, and yet he's still getting minutes and still being asked to kind of help the team when he just shouldn't be. It's been years where we've known he's not been good enough, and this situation should have been dealt with a long time ago. And the fact that it hasn't,
as many other situations.
Yeah, and that also probably led to a lot of the Levy out chants which were present on the weekend as well.
But the Levy out chant should be louder than the boos if the boos ever come at all. And if you are booing, you boo as a collective. You don't point out individual players and pick on them to boo, because I can't remember. I think Laurie said it or Stellini said it. This is a team game. This is not an individual game. So if you want to lay into one of them, lay into all of them, because they all deserve it. It's not just one of them.
And in a weird way, Porro, I did start to see as well, quite a few people shouting things about Porro during the game. And part of me also feels like, because in a weird way, because he's a new £40 million signing, right? And these obviously coming from people who are very staunchly leaving ENIC out, who are shouting these things. They're like, oh, he's also rubbish kind of thing. It's like, oh, they've signed another dud kind of perception. And so whenever they see him do a bad pass or play as he did on Saturday, it kind of feeds into this perception again. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to signings. Look, they signed another rubbish player, get him out of our club. Same kind of thing. Levy's done it again kind of thing. And that maybe led to the abuse he was getting on social media and him deactivating, and Canada's obviously completely wrong. But again, that it comes down from their frustration from the hierarchy, I feel.
This is the club that ENIC and Daniel Levy have created now. It's a pure hotbed for toxism in that stadium. Fans fighting with each other, Levy ins, Levy outs, support the team, boo the team, It's just so toxic from head to toe, this whole football club. And That's why the Spurs fans should be focusing their anger at one place and one place only. Like Barry said, it should be focused right at the top, and that's where our feelings should be known, not at individual players and, you know, making them and causing them to make mistake after mistake after mistake after they're making mistake after mistake. We need to focus it on one place and one place only, and that is right at the top. And that's my honest opinion in it. What are you thinking, Barry? Any follow-up comments on that one?
Yeah, look, and I think, look, the other thing that didn't help is his mum and dad were there. So they were there
Sanchez
for the first time.
or Porro?
Yeah. Sanchez, sorry. His mum and dad were there for the first time since COVID. So obviously, obviously we don't know. But like what Ashmatic said, you know, you never know. These people are human beings. They may be, you know, they're fortunate enough to be in the position that they're in, getting paid hundreds of thousands of pounds every week. But you never know what situation they could be in. And look, you know my thoughts on Emerson. Being our best right wing back, right? But Porro, yeah, look, he is a better player going forward, but Emerson's better at defence. If you could mould those two players together, we'd have one hell of a right wing back. But it shouldn't be. Yeah, it shouldn't get to the point where we've broken it. And Ben's right. The thing is, at this club, we don't know what we want. We don't know whether we want Daniel Levy there or we want him there. We don't know whether we want Poch back or we do want Poch back, or we don't know who we want to replace Harry Kane, or we want Harry Kane to stay. Well, this is the thing, and like Ben said, this is what's being created. Because none of the fans are together, no one can sit there. If you go and ask 10 fans, or even ask all of us, we'd probably say different person that we want as the next manager. Or you go and stand outside the trainer. Who would you want as? Here's a choice, 4 choices, or another, and there'd be so many different choices, and that's the real problem. And I can't see it. What are we going to gain from booing or not supporting these players for the next 7 games? We're going to get even worse. And then what's going to happen? Kane's going to leave. Son potentially would leave. Romero, you obviously saw what happened with if Conte had stayed. He was talking about leaving. Perisic wants to go. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, the last one, Perisic, is probably a poor example. But if Romero, Son, and Kane leave, we've got nothing, and that will be because of what we've done as well, or not done as a fan base.
You know what? It literally feels like about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when we had Pochettino, Arsenal were in their last couple of years of Arsene Wenger. This is what it feels like right now, flipped on its head, where Arsenal are the new shining team in the Premier League, youngest team, fighting for the titles, and North London rivals in complete disarray, absolute toxic fights between the fans, no direction whatsoever. I mean, everything has just flipped on its head in 7 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it feels like at the moment as well, it's like, in terms of the fans' frustration, obviously we understand them, and like, it feels as though the management and the players, like in terms of this top 4 race, it feels like they've given up. It feels like they don't believe they're going to do it. So then all of a sudden, it's like maybe the fans are also, there's like a feeling as if, look, if you're not going to believe, why should I keep supporting you, kind of thing. And obviously that's not the way to support, but that's the feeling. And right now, with 7 games to go, we have this interim manager in charge who no one thinks is going to get us top 4. No one believes in, because he's the same tactics as what we had before. Like, no one believes that we've really done our best to put ourselves in the best position going into the last 7 games to get that last Champions League spot. So with each bad performance and each mistake, it's going to get more and more toxic in that stadium from now to the end of the season until something changes. And with no new manager in sight, I don't see it changing until the end of the season. And that's a worrying thought.
Yeah. Ash, any follow-up comments on that?
Nah. I have no other comments.